The greatest casting challenge for Glee was we couldn't make the show unless the people in it could sing and dance and act.
We needed each one of these characters to be a triple threat, or they just wouldn't work.
You know, it's not going to go very far if the singing is just okay.
The danger is that the audience no longer is interested. The danger is this.
But I must say there was a lot of talent that came through this door.
Being a part of something special makes you special, right?
My name is Ryan Murphy. I'm one of the executive producers and creators of Glee. There are three of us: myself, Brad Falchuk, and Ian Brennan.
I had written a screenplay in 2005 about a Glee club.
I read it and I thought, well, I don't think that this subject material is necessarily a movie, but let's do it as a TV show.
Glee is the story of the worst Glee club, probably in the history of Ohio, and its rise to greatness.
The Glee Club is just completely the outcasts, and I prefer that they're the underdogs. So the show is about how do these disparate sort of groups of people come together to form a collective.
Big smiles.
I also created a television show called Nip Tuck. So I have a television deal with 20th Century Fox Television Studios, which is run by Dana Walden and Gary Newman. I said, I have this idea, the network that gave you American Idol, in a dramatic comedic form.
The jaws dropped a little bit because, well, the idea of a musical on television, it just has rarely been done and almost never successfully. But he pitched with such specificity and originality that immediately we felt we were onto something special.
Ryan thought it could be something other than just another series, and we were instantly taken with it. And we then, together with Ryan, went over to pitch Kevin Reiley.
I had worked with Ryan Murphy at FX many years ago. Ryan pitched Nip Tuck to me, and the second he pitched that, it had a little spark in his eye, and I just thought if he gets that on film, we've got something special, and he did. And I saw that same spark again when he pitched Glee.
He heard it and was like, well, it sounds really great and really bizarre, and it kind of has to thread through the head of a needle or something.
This whole project is threading a needle. First of all, when you're dealing with music on television, there's not a long, rich history. This is not a cop show. There's not a long, rich history of these things working. I think that's the distinction between doing a musical or doing a comedy with music. This is not something that characters spontaneously break out into song. They sing in an organic setting in a Glee Club setting. And it is very sweet, and yet it is snarky. So that is threading the needle.
Kevin said, go and write it as quickly as you can. You know, we are completely on board, and let's get going.
It's genius. This particular show was obviously, its total success depended on finding people who could sing, and if we didn't, there would be no show.
You lose the authenticity of the show if you have people up there who can't sing. It just wouldn't work.
The greatest casting challenge for Glee is, you know, in show business, there's a term called the triple threat, which means you can sing and dance and act. And finding people who are triple threats are incredibly rare.
If you can't find people that can do that, you have things that are either flat or that miss the mark, or you have characters that have the snark, but you don't really want them to succeed.
If we don't find the right actors, then we just can't make it. Unless we had been blessed in finding the cast that we had, we would not have moved forward.
I'd like to take over Glee Club.
You want to captain the Titanic too?
Auditions actually took place in the exact room that we're sitting in right now.
I've never really sat there and had people come in and sing. And you know what? It was the most fun casting process I've ever been through.
Casting sessions for Glee became, you know, something of an event here at the studio. People wanted to get in the room, or if not get in the room, they at least hang out by the door and see if they could hear little bits of it.
When we were casting Glee, there were so many great casting stories and adventures and journeys that we had, and these are a few that we can talk about that I am particularly fond of, but there were so many.
The first person we saw was Leah, and it was a great way to start the auditions.
You might laugh because every time I sign my name, I put a gold star after it, but it's a metaphor. And metaphors are important. My gold stars are a metaphor for me being a star.
I think the linchpin of the casting process for us was the role of Rachel. And I think if we hadn't gotten that part right, we wouldn't have had a show.
Rachel was designed as somebody that feels like they could be an outcast and yet has enough presence and sparkle to be a lead. And then on top of that, she was the star of the Glee Club, so really had to sing.
So the character of Rachel is kind of all ego and is like a fantastic little fireball of a starlet who's spectacularly talented and utterly tone deaf to how she comes across to people, and that's kind of where her charm lies.
I come from a world of musical theater, so I never really thought I'd be on a television show.
I was friendly with Leah, and when we were writing the part of Rachel, I always really did have her in the back of my mind.
How are you guys?
But she had to audition like everybody else. What are you singing?
You don't want to hear my monologue?
Which one?
It's fine, Ryan.
She came into this room and sang On My Own from Les Mis.
And I think it was before her network test actually got in an accident.
I get into a massive car crash outside of the Fox lot, completely total my car. When I get into the room for my audition, I literally was still pulling pieces of glass out of my hair. They're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." You're very talented. And I start singing my first song. I love him. And the piano player skipped through the second verse. So right in the middle of my song, I was like, "Excuse me, I need to sing the entire song." We have to go back to the second verse. Very Rachel Berry. I can't keep wasting my time with Glee. It hurts too much. It wasn't supposed to be funny, that was my serious part.
You know what? She wanted that part. Not even a trip to the emergency room was going to stop that girl from getting that part.
She was as poised as anyone I've ever seen in my life. It was just another day at the office.
Very nice, Rachel.
When do we start rehearsals? I think the rest of the team expects us to become an item. You, the hot male lead, and me, the stunning young ingenue everyone roots for.
Well, I have a girlfriend.
Really?
The greatest casting challenge on this show in terms of a role was Finn.
Because not only did they have to sing and be comedic, they had to feel like they could be an underdog and somebody that you really rooted for, but at the same time, somebody that was a strapping football star.
I was always adamant, as was Kevin, Reiley, that that part needed to be a guy's guy. And most of the time, if they walked through the door, they looked like Zac Efron from High School Musical. We went through a lot of casting sessions.
I'd be watching tapes of people, and it was about 2 in the morning.
Hi, I'm Cory Monteith,
And suddenly, this young man's face appeared on the screen, and he just popped. I mean, he was so special. And we watched and watched, and there was no singing, and we're going, wait a second. Everybody was supposed to sing.
The tape also had him weirdly drumming on like cans. It was strange, and somehow it worked. But for the first minute, you're like, huh, that's odd.
And I thought, well, that's weird, but I could write to that.
My character is the quarterback of the high school football team. He also has a passion for singing in the Glee Club, and those two things don't go together very well. And I didn't have dance or singing experience, so I conveniently excluded that from the first tape that I sent. But to show them I'm musically minded, I could play the drums. But for the purpose of taping, we didn't have any drums, so we went into the kitchen and got Tupperware and wine glasses and unsharpened pencils.
And it was so charming, and it really made him stand out.
Whoa, careful, all right.
He actually has a great voice, and it's not it's not a Broadway voice, it's just a normal voice, and it works perfectly well. That's exactly what the character is and should have.
They wrote the fact that I'm a drummer into my character's storyline, so I think I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I haven't been fired yet.
Please, this is from Marc Jacobs' new collection.
Wait. Okay.
Chris Colfer plays the role of Kurt.
Chris is an example of somebody that can come in and literally create a part by walking in the door.
In an early draft of a script, we had an Indian character. And my casting director said, I'm bringing in a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid for this part, which doesn't work at all, but he's so unusual and fantastic. Just seeing him, maybe you'll write something for him in the future.
And this is Ryan's genius. Ryan said, you look like you've come right out of Sound of Music.
Why do I feel that you played Rolf in Sound of Music?
I played Kurt.
Kurt! Nice. Close!
Yeah.
Good for you.
I have gone Trapper, no.
He sang the song he sang in the pilot, that Mr. Cellophane.
Should have been my name, Mr. Cellophane.
And then Ryan, astutely, he's like, nope, the role of Rajesh is not really working. Rajesh is now Kurt Hummel.
Hummel from, the Hummel figurines with the little rosy cheeks.
The role is a young teenage guy who wrestles with his identity.
Kurt Hummel is the fashionable soprano. He goes through a little bit of an identity crisis in the first couple episodes. He thinks very highly of himself, but no one else does.
It was crazy, and I've never seen anything like that happen.
Oh, we were so lucky that we found the whole cast. It seemed blessed from the beginning. The whole project.
Just a small town girl.
It's very rare that you look and you say, oh, we got it all right. Sometimes you say, all right, these three will dial up and those other ones will maybe dial out. I can say that the whole ensemble just feels right.
Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit.
The people we got earned it, deserved it, and were the 100% right fit.
There are very few days that you can walk up and down the halls of the studio and not pass an office where someone's just watching the dailies from Glee, just to be entertained.
Don't stop believing.
It was, without a doubt, the favorite casting process I've participated in.
I think it's fantastic. I look at the cast now and I feel like we thread the needle.
Don't stop.
From the top.